people like about Joe is that they feel like he's authentic and that he is himself. Now, whether they agree or disagree with everything he says, what he's built over a period of years and really over a decade is trust that he is going to be who he is and call things how he sees them. Again, that doesn't mean he's always right.
In this video, Tim Dillon joins Chris Cuomo on his show. Tim Dillon explains how Chris Cuomo and the mainstream liberal media continue to try to unsuccessfully make Joe Rogan irrelevant. With that, let's watch Tim Dillon hilariously destroy Chris Cuomo.
Is now tarnished. But I got what Douglas was saying for several reasons. One, I have no problem with people having an opinion about anything. That's all podcasts are, for the most part, is hot takes. And I get that, and there's space for everything, and it's an evolving space. And my big prediction is that Rogan's success is admirable. I do not believe he'll be where he was 3 months ago, a year from today. There are too many talented people entering that space now who want his real estate, and they're going to be better at what he does than he is. So I think that
but I got to be honest,
he's going to see attrition.
That's not the first time someone said that about Joe. He does surpass expectations. Like, people wrote his obituary many, many times, and it's just never come true.
Oh, listen, I don't necessarily want it to come true because I don't find him offensive or anything. I see him as innocuous, but he's getting criticism. He never got criticism before. The media is taking him seriously now, and that's not going to go well for him. He's always been ignored. And then he did that deal after the media made him relevant for a minute as an anti-vaxxer, which wasn't really fair, but he put himself in that position. And then he got his big deal, and then they had problems with the deal, and the media scrubbed him, found bullshit, racist things that, he had said in the past. They made him apologize. That was the beginning. So that's what I see being done to him, whether or not it is deserved. But I'm happy for his success. I hope it continues. What I saw in Douglas Murray's thing that I think people should think about is there's a difference between saying, look, Tim, this is what I think about tulips, okay?
Right.
And, make of it what you want. I'm not a botanist. I'm not a horticulturist. There's a difference between that and me now becoming an organizing point on tulips. The issue for Murray is not that Dave Smith has an opinion on Gaza, but as a journalist, I would never say the kinds of things that Dave Smith says about Gaza, about Israel, about COVID, about vaccines, about any of it. Because as a journalist, I'm so aware of what I don't know. And he seems to be too comfortable ignoring his own ignorance. And because of that, it'd be one thing if he was just another guy. But when you are positioned by Rogan or by anybody as someone to listen to so that you may believe what he believes, now I get...
Without question, the podcast landscape is going to continue to get bigger as time goes on. But Rogan has seen it all, man. You just described a bunch of ways, and a bunch of ways they've tried to discredit his influence on people. I'll speak for myself, but I think a lot of people probably feel this way. Joe Rogan is willing to have a conversation with anyone. It's one of the reasons that it makes it so funny that they call him a right-winger. I've watched Joe Rogan for a long time, and he was a liberal for a long time, but it shows his open-mindedness because... if you know me at all, you know I can't stand listening to a liberal, but he wasn't insufferable. He was willing to listen to other people. And then, as the left has gotten so crazy, he's just rejected a lot of their ideas. That doesn't make him some crazy right-wing podcaster. And politics is, 5% of what they talk about on that show. So that's not even his lane. And you say there's going to be someone that can do it better than him. There are just so many facets. Maybe in one area, but I think Joe Rogan is strong in so many areas with the way he speaks to people, his willingness to challenge at times, his willingness to acknowledge, hey, I don't know, and just listen at times, his truly inquisitive nature to really learn on a multitude of topics. That's just his personality. I don't think you can replicate that. And the left say they want their Joe Rogan. A big problem is Joe Rogan has come to this organically, and he has a voice in politics now, whether he wants it or not, which I don't think he even necessarily wants, because he acknowledges he's not an expert, but he has a voice in politics because people trust him and listen to him. I jokingly say this all the time, but I'm dead serious that for a left-wing podcaster or figure to have someone really start trusting them and being willing to listen to them even when they have different ideas than they do, which is what happened for Joe Rogan, they'd have to earn people's trust. That individual that's speaking, this figure, this person who's on a podcast, they'd have to earn people's trust for a long time. And I think Joe really didn't talk much politics early on, but they just, and whether it's true or not, I don't know, but the sense people got was he's open-minded, he's willing to concede points, make points, push back on points, and have a normal conversation. I don't think it's, Chris Cuomo does it. Chris Cuomo either doesn't believe what he's saying or he's extremely, extremely naive about how ridiculously influential Joe Rogan is.
Get why Murray was bothered by it. Because if you ask me about Gaza, okay, it matters that Smith has never been to the region. Okay, if you're not on the ground there, you don't talk to people in the region, through no filter. And this is not what Tim Dillon says about what happened when he was in Gaza.
Most people in this country around 2004, 2005 were starting to see the folly of the Iraq war. They were starting to see that the Bush doctrine of preemptive war to supposedly democratize the Middle East had failed, or was in a process of failing. Almost none of those people had visited Iraq or Afghanistan. I would say that 99.9% of them had never visited that country. But the images coming out of that region and the news from a common sense perspective allowed most people to say that engaging in this type of foreign policy was an error.
I agree. And you don't have to be in a place to understand it, obviously. Right. However, from a journalist's perspective, the idea that you understand the fabric of a conflict and you haven't been around it, I get why that would be upsetting, because that is a standard for us. Now, the war, I lived, right? And I signed up as an early embed, and I lost a lot of guys on 9/11, and it had a big impact on me, and I was here for it, and I watched it in real time. We knew there were no weapons of mass destruction much earlier, and the Bush administration shut us down, said that we were threatening operational security of troops on the ground in the Middle East. The American people agreed and stopped watching the news. I remember the report.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Reporting changing. Not that we started to change our take, but we said it less, because Bush had succeeded in swaying the American people to agree to disagree about weapons of mass destruction. But we're in it now, so let's just go kill the bad guys. And I remember it. And I remember Congress, that being the last time they took a vote on a conflict. After that point, they gave their power to the president.
Yeah. I think part of the media's credibility problem, and why I think the media going after Rogan as much as they do doesn't have the desired effect on their end, is that they have lost the trust of a vast majority of Americans. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get it back.
But who has the trust? Who has trust? I guarantee you, if you asked all of America, I don't know how many know Joe Rogan, but if you were to ask,
look, good amount.
But I'm saying I don't know, because you got to remember, these numbers, I don't believe them. I don't believe my own numbers.
Right.
So, let's say Rogan, has made a name for himself. He's been popularized within the media. I mean, I've always known him because I'm a UFC fan, but
the statistics have been in for a long time that the media has had a steady decline in public trust since the 50s, I believe. And it's a very low percentage of Americans that do trust the media now. They always seem to grapple with that fact, but they don't ever seem to want to address it. Because to rebuild that trust, if it's possible, would be a long-term project. And they're not willing to put in that long-term work. They would need to just tell the truth on the news. If they got something wrong, acknowledge it quickly. People respect honesty. People respect authenticity. People know that people make mistakes. But it's the constant lies, and even when you're admitting that you got something wrong, trying to spin it to show us how you weren't really wrong. You know, we all know the truth about the Bush administration, weapons of mass destruction now. But if you think back to that time where he says the public started turning the news off and listening to the president, I'm assuming that's true based on Cuomo being in the news at that time. I don't know why he has a reason to lie about it. But you hear who he blames? The public and the Bush administration. But he suspiciously left out any criticism of the media. People wouldn't stop watching the news over one story. I haven't looked into this at all, so I'm speculating, but I feel pretty confident in saying it was most likely the nail in the news coffin for some people, even though in this incident they're talking about the media wasn't lying, but they'd been lied to so many times by mainstream liberal media. The fact that that actually wasn't a lie from the media doesn't matter. It was just the final straw probably for a lot of mainstream liberal news viewers because they'd been lied to so many times. So let's be clear, the media earn through their own actions people's desire at that time to turn CNN and other networks of their ilk off. Anyway, let's wrap it up.
I don't think he's going to have a high indicia of trust with people outside the bro culture.
Here's
so
what
it's about your space.
I would disagree with you in that sense because I think what people like about Joe is that they feel like he's authentic and that he is himself. Now, whether they agree or disagree with everything he says, what he's built over a period of years and really over a decade is trust that he is going to be who he is and call things how he sees them. Again, that doesn't mean he's always right. He built a show with his interests. Corporate media doesn't allow people to do that. Most journalists we don't know much about other than the fact that they opine on the news or they read the news. Rogan built an audience with his interests. Here's the things I value. Here's what interests me. And he filters the current events through that lens.
I think Tim's just expressing exactly what I was trying to say, but as always, much more articulately. It's real simple what people want from a podcast talking about sports or reality TV or politics or everything like Joe Rogan does. They want honesty. They want to be able to trust who they're listening to, and they want authenticity. That's it. But we want to hear from you. What did you guys think about this conversation about Rogan between Tim Dillon and Chris Cuomo? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you in the next one.